All right, what I'm going to show you, I don't think anybody can dispute. And if I am correct, I want to help at least try to explain to the people in Turkey what they are up against, what their earth is made out of, right underneath them. Okay, it could be quite serious. These are all earthquakes or volcanoes. And these little dots, and some of them are, they're little tremorish things, but then when you get into the red and the blue, we talk about a little more serious. And I believe this was the one that was in Turkey, 6.1. Well, actually, there was a bunch of them in this area. But this is the west coast of the United States. This is what I've been focusing on. Now look where this runs, all the way up, straight up through Alaska, and all the way out through the Aleutian chain. Now, they've had some terrible, terrible earthquakes. There was an 8-point something right off here too. So this whole area here is extremely affected. Now, I'm going to play this in slow motion here. Now, this was from this guy here, Stephen Burns. And he's talking about Turkey. This is Fair Use Act. I'm not trying to steal anything from him. It just shows the intensity and the number since July 29th of this year. Now here it goes. Look at the activity going on. Watch the ripples that are going on. The ripples. You see that? You see what's going on here? This is the earthquakes that are happening as we're talking over the course of a couple of days. This only goes back 10, 12 days ago. I want to see if I can at least shed some light on this. And let's just jump right into it. Slow motion earthquakes. I think you saw that rippling effect all over the earth. All right, I'm not going to apologize for what I'm about to show you because it's true. This is a hair follicle. That's one of these. That's where the muscle right here attached to the hair follicle, so you could do this. This is the sebaceous gland, which is right there. Slid down here, and there it is. There is the hair shaft, which is a flat-sided. They tell me that's probably from somebody that had curly hair. This is about 2 inches wide. And that's the root coming down, and that is the hair papilla down here. So don't tell me these things were not small. And I have other stuff, not quite this big, but they're big. It's like a 3-foot long fingertip. It's been DNA tested. This is a lung. It's been DNA tested, CAT scan. It all happened during the Great Flood. Now, people can't accept this. Oh, the guy's crazy. No, I'm not. I have the evidence. The people that are crazy are the people that cannot accept reality, and that's what I have run into in the academic realm. They just cannot accept reality. What I'm going to show you is so important; it has to be looked at. Okay, I'm really, really hoping that Stephen Burns will contact me. Roger@mudfossils.com. Any experts on virtually any topic. I'm wide open for questions, to do some back and forth, questions and answers. People have never considered this before. That is muscle tissue. And that, what happened is there's red blood in here that's eroded out of there because red blood washes right out, and the whole thing collapsed because this layer of red blood ran out of there, just as I was about to show you. Outrageous claims, outrageous evidence. That's what happened here, and that is muscle tissue from a giant creature. All right, this is what happened in Turkey. This whole thing collapsed. This is the surface right here. This is basically skin. I'm serious as I can be. That's skin. All of the olive trees were up on top, growing down like this. This is muscle sarcomeres. I will show you, laugh all you want. This is exactly what happened there. You have red blood services muscle tissues. That red blood ran out from under and created voids in here. And the whole thing just dropped. And I mean a huge expanse of it. Don't forget, these are the trees at the top. Skin, and then the muscle sarcomeres, as you will see right here. There it is right there. That's the muscle. Here it is. This is it. Those are the trees. That's the skin all the way across the top. You see it down to here. And then you get into the muscle. The muscle is serviced by red blood. And the black, where you see the black, that's the membranes. Phospholipid membranes that surround each muscle sarcomere, and they come in blocks. So a layer of blood ran out, because you see the hill, you see the slope on the hill, it ran out down here. They were probably saw where it was running out from, and there's caves there or something, and the whole thing just collapsed. And I mean the whole thing. It was an enormous collapse. Now, I don't know how much clearer I can make it. That's actual muscle that's in your body, and everybody's body has a muscle. It pulls in like this. That's constricted, and that's relaxed. And all these tiny, 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 tiny little fibers are connective tissue. They don't run away. They don't run out like blood. Blood and the really wet, gooey, red stuff has to flow and has to be fluid. That stuff is what makes you so that you don't fall apart, is the little bitty bits in there. But when they pull together, that's when you get your muscle activity. Now, I don't know if you picked up on it or not, but that is actual rock. All right, that's not muscle that just cut out of a person's body. That's a rock. And that's the olive grove growing on the top. You know, that's my rendition. Pretty cool, huh? I can highlight stuff with this. Anyway, we have to start to understand there is nothing but biology. Nothing but biology. Even Iapetus here, this moon, that is the ridge from, this is actually a tendon enthesis. All right, these balls that you see all over the world, these Moki marbles, even the Mars blueberries, they're all tendon enthesis with all of the edible stuff removed, all of the floppy stuff, and just the ball remaining. And in Alaska now, they're coming out as mossy little green balls because the flesh is still on them. I'll show you. All right, you saw a turkey. It's collapsing because the muscle is collapsing. All right, now, what's going on in Alaska? What is this? What the hell is going on there? Every one of those balls is growing moss on it. And they've been studying them for a long time. They all move in a herd. They actually move. They don't have any roots. I understand the whole process here. This is biology, which were the tendon enthesis balls. I'll show it to you what they look like in us. This is what they look like in us. Right there. Those little balls. And they're edible. So whatever that moss is, it loves red blood. And I can show you unquestionably it's true. And they sell red blood meal to make plants grow green. They grind up blood and put it on the plants, green. All of those balls, they never considered them much of anything. They always thought they called it fuzz. And they just, because it's like it lets you move around like this. And it's like a padding. And they never thought anything of it. I discovered the interstitium, which is right there. Meet your interstitium, a newfound organ. This is in 2018. They announced it. This is what the interstitium is right here. Now I could see it in the mud fossils. This fluid-filled highway. That's it right there. It's the first time they ever saw it. They could see that there was fascia and there was a membrane, But by the time they autopsied him, it was flat. That is just nothing but fluid. You see that? That's a big strip of fluid. And there's a membrane on top and a membrane below. And there's a bazillion little membranes in here. They're all over the place. But there is this one fluid-filled highway which is attached to the entire body. And the reason I realized this was because I could see it. And I asked a guy that was deeply involved in fascia. And he said, oh, it's not anything. It's just a membrane. I said, no, I think there's something different. So we started looking into this, and sure enough, it is this fluid-filled highway. Now, I also started working with some people overseas, and they were telling me they were finding tattoo residue on the fascia and the organs, and the liver and the kidney and everywhere. I believe. I don't know if it was specific to certain organs, but they were telling me they were finding a certain type of ink. Now, I don't know which type it was, or if it was a universal one, or what it was, but they could find it way deep inside in the organs, and they couldn't figure out why. And they were finding them coating the organs. And that's when I realized that this is an entire system. I wrote the paper on this in 2015 about fascia facilitated fossilization, because this is how this layer here kept everything from decomposing what was below. That's a whole other issue. That was the mud fossils. But in that process, I discovered this layer. And it went from there to find that everywhere in the world, everything is made up these layers. You just have to understand what you're looking at. Like I said, you just have to understand it. Huge and little. What I was just showing you before is this. All right, these are the little balls. Tiny, tiny little balls. All right, and they're everywhere. And they're everywhere in your skin, so your skin can move around and go back where it's supposed to be. And as you get older, this stuff starts to not return. It's not quite so elastic, let's call it that. But this is the elasticity of your skin. And these little black balls are the anchors. More or less. They're a secure spot. And these little brown spots are the springs. They open up the fluids, the fluid-filled bags, so that you have nice plump skin, and it's mobile, and just this and that, and boom, 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 and come back to where it's supposed to be. That's the idea. Now, this is the same stuff. No difference whatsoever. This is the skin. That is the skin. This is the fluid-filled highways and the membranes and all the collagens, and the red stuff is real floppy and erodes easily. The brown stuff, not so much. The black balls don't erode hardly at all. And that's what you find here. So the skin has collapsed as this gets washed out from under it. And the skin is laying on top of the mud, which is nothing more than eroded flesh. Mud is nothing more than eroded flesh. That's all it is. You know, I mean, there's other stuff in it, but primarily, if it's red, muddy mud, it's eroded flesh. And in the West, these are the Moki marbles in Arizona, New Mexico. They're all over the place. They're everywhere in the world. I'll show you the ones from Alaska. Maybe I did already, but I'll show you again. These have had all of their outside eaten. And then the mud just ran off. So now they're nothing but hard stone balls. They call them the Moki marbles. On Mars, they're known as the Mars blueberries, identical. Because Mars is identical. It was the same as Earth. Everything I can tell is biological, and that is. If you can't see that, just stop and look and think. Don't just laugh at, oh, this guy's crazy. No, I'm not crazy. These layers are everywhere on Earth because the Earth is layered with biology. Now, a geophysicist, I would hope, he would help to discuss this. That's all. I just want to discuss it, see what his take is on it. Because I mean, maybe kind of hard to miss this, to be perfectly honest with you. And anyway, here's the Alaska balls. The same balls, except they still have the flesh surrounding them. All the rest of the stuff eroded away. Now, why is this a disaster? Because this stuff is supposed to stay frozen. It's not supposed to erode like this from heat, which is what Stefan is talking about. And it melts all of the fleshy stuff away, and you end up with these balls, and they're being eaten. And that, when you thaw out biology, and it literally rots and decomposes, it gives off huge amounts of gases. Now, if this was under a lake, you'd see bubbling like crazy. And they are. Up in Alaska, they're bubbling, the lakes are bubbling. And there's so much methane being given off, it's just staggering. Now, this is being eaten, but the stuff underneath that's capped is what's called anaerobic. This is aerobic. All right, it's in oxygen, so it's just gases off, but it still creates a lot of greenhouse gases, methanes and so forth. If it's in the ground, capped off, and it can't get to oxygen, that's what happens. And it's happening right here. It's happening everywhere. The Earth, this is a slow motion. It's something's got to give. You cannot expand the Earth with heat. Heat makes everything expand because the gases that are given off have nowhere to go, and that's why they go pew, or they just open up like this and sort of vaporize off. It depends on what type of biology this gaseous expansion is coming from. All right, or if it runs out from underneath like a turkey, you get a collapse. All of that stuff ran out down the hill underneath, and you had voids in here, and then that's what happened to Turkey. Now, to show you how distinct this is, well, first of all, these are the balls, and here's really what's going on. I can't believe they didn't see this. There's the ball inside here. All right, this whole thing is turning this way. You can tell because it's bending back. You see it bending this way? It's trying to get sunlight for the ones that aren't getting any sunlight. And it's being eaten into. You see, it's actually eating layers of tissue that were surrounding this when the thing died and was frozen. That should not be thawing out. Now that it's thawing out, I don't think it's a good thing. Now, this is, look at this. Lichen likes the black blood, and the red blood creates moss. Look at this guy. He's looking at it saying, how the hell did that happen? Nobody painted that. Nobody painted that. You see the red blood here? How red, green right next to it? It loves that stuff. Now, up here, I think, was the attachment to where the tendons attach. Up in this area, it's called well, I call it glue. And I can show you some, which I probably already have. But anyway, a tendon is blocky. That's the only way I can look at this, because when you look at tendons, they're blocky. And this is huge. I mean, obviously gigantic, but they are blocky. Now, I never realized that they could have a black one and a red one right next to each other running down, or is this dripping off black blood here, which would do this? And this is dripping off red blood, and in spots not red blood. I don't know, a lot to think about. But there's no question it's biology. And I believe right there is the abrupt transition between the tendon, and notice, I can see it now. I wish I had more. I can't get any more out of that side. But that's the gluey stuff that glues the tendons from a bone or whatever to a muscle. All right, we're going to be looking at a map that he compiled. It was very interesting where all these disturbances are happening. Now, this goes back to, I think this was 2013, 2014. The Russians had an explosion up in, I think it was Kamchatka, I can't remember, so it was a peninsula up there. And I actually did talk to somebody in Russia about this because they knew I was doing sinkhole research. And when I saw this, I said, well, that's a lung. And you're going to have a lot of these because the surface is getting warmer and it's dropping. And they were pumping all kinds of gas and oil and everything. So the depth of what normally held it up was going lower. If you look at this, you can see it's just like fabric. You see it? It's just like a fabric. If we put all that back together again, it'd be just like a fabric. And it went bloop and opened right up. Here it is right here. That is exactly what would happen if this lung here, which is a lung, been DNA tested, CAT scanned, flat as a pancake, and that's my opinion, was from the Great Flood. This is fabric, very, very dense fabric. That's why your lungs can do this for your whole life. This fabric. It's called pleura. When that goes all away, you get down here. That's what this is. One of these, which probably this one here, a big one, blew out. And they saw this and they said, wow, what's going on? And that's when I got involved, because a Japanese guy got a hold of me. He said, you know, you're doing the sinkholes, why don't you talk to the Russians? They got questions about this. So I did. And I told him what I was thinking. I said, you know, it's biology. I don't know what he thought. Like I said, I've been talking about this. He was very respectful, and I was respectful. But there was, a couple weeks later, had 13 more baby craters, they said, which are the ones dropping too. Once you lose the pressure, and everything was being held up by pressure, all of a sudden it goes, you lose all that pressure. Not only here, all the way around everywhere. And they said 13 new baby craters popped up. And they're all over now. And every time you see the ground shake, you're in danger of something collapsing. And that's what's happening. That's what causes earthquakes. Something collapsed under the earth, and it's spread open and released, or it's just opening up, that type of thing, or being evacuated like what happened in Turkey. All right, we really got a lot of talking to do about this, but this is the sun. And Mason took these pictures with a fabulous, fabulous understanding of how to get the results to show everything, not just what you want to see, because they coat the lenses with something that won't let you see all of this stuff, which they consider to be background noise. Well, not to us. He engineered it back so that we can see all this stuff. I don't know how he did it. That's fabulous. Now, this side of the sun appears more energetic than this side. Well, it's obviously more energetic. Luminosity, brightness determines how much energy there is. This is much more bright than that. There's something else going on over here. I don't know what. But there's a lot of white here. But everything is dipoles. And a lot of that stuff was filtered out. Not anymore. Now I can see where the corona really, really gets intense is in this area here, where it scrubs into space. And I believe the sun is moving this way, and we're seeing these big fields because it's pushing into these other fields, creating, because I've seen that in other shots from Dylan, the same sort of thing. Well, it was from a solar corona. I mean, a solar eclipse. And you could see the corona and these three glowing spots, creating magnetic fields pushing each other away from each other. You don't see this on the other side, and you didn't see it on the other one either. This, I don't know what's going on. Could that be related to the intense stuff? This is the kind of thing I would love to show somebody that's an astrophysicist, geophysicist, whatever, and discuss this back and forth, because this is new stuff. You know, and the guys that are doing this, they're just average guys, citizen scientists, which is what I am too. I'm not out to make a killing on this. I don't want to. I don't need any of that stuff. I just want it known that we're missing the boat here onto what reality really is. And I mean, this goes way beyond just this. something is bigger than I ever thought. But you see how glowy that is? And not so much here. Why? A dipole always will occur if something is pushing something else. You'll have one side that'll be glowy and the other side will be less glowy. That's what you got here. That's all I can take away from that. See, this is the same thing here. In my mind, the moon is moving in this direction and pushing into the light that's hitting it, probably from the sun. I don't know. But I'm seeing all these little glowing dipoles. At a certain distance out, something's going on there. I don't know what. What is that? Someone explain that to me? This side doesn't have that. And this side is glowier with the blue, and this side is really thin with the blue. That's a shift to more energetic, I would say. Now, what's going on here? I would say the sun's coming in at this angle, whacking it hard right here, and making it glow blue. And this is basically the dark side of the moon out there. It's not being irradiating. This is whatever it is. That's the question. They're dipoles. Well, that's as much as I can tell you on that one. I mean, there's a lot to look at, but now I think somebody should look into Mason's work here. This is not nothing. This is seeing things nobody's ever seen before, as far as I know. Okay, this is from, hold on. All right, this is Stefan Burns talking about the earthquakes, and he's going back to August 3rd. Look where they are. Run all the way up the coast here, all the way out, and people that know me know exactly what I say this is. That entire thing is actually biology. Now, which everything is. But this particular area appears to be warming up because not only does it have biology, it has toxicity. I'll explain that in a minute. Now, in a second, he shows how this is starting to enrage as well. As is here, as is here, as is down here. The whole thing is shaking. And it doesn't just shake for nothing. Something is collapsing or expanding. There's no other way to do it. All right, he's showing there's a huge ripple throughout the earth of these events. And it's coming and going. Before it was all red up in here. That's probably released a little bit. It squirted it down. But this is the body of a gigantic creature, as is this stuff over here. We're into nothing but biology, and the same thing on the East Coast. That's Quetzalcoatl. I've shown these things. It's very hard for people to accept it. He just keeps showing ripple after ripple. Look at this. Is not nothing. This is something causing some kind of movement in the earth. If it's coordinated, I have no idea. But push to shove normally creates a pattern of waves, and that's what he's showing. I don't want to show his stuff. You can come up and watch it. Its solar activity surge continues. M6.1 earthquake hits Turkey after Mount Etna erupts. Everything's, the expansion of the decomposition is getting pretty serious. And the more heat we put in the air, the more expansion we put, the more heat, the more this stuff will happen. We get worse and worse. I mean, it's really, he's going day by day. The time that these things are happening is just within the last couple of weeks. All right, this is the real serious, I think it was 8.8, right off of Kamchatka, which is right off of Russia, which is right next to our friend Scorbzilla. Okay, I don't know what Kamchatka is at this moment, but I can tell you I'm sure that is vein blood, and that is artery blood. And this is inside this crater. Now, that's not a crater, it's biology. And that's why this stuff is growing so green. And then you have all these little rivulets. Those are not just because of melting snow, but it is melting. And those are biology. And these are the layers of tissue. You see how that's not an accident. That's this right here, the same stuff. Same stuff. And when you have a red spot like that there, that's like a red spot like that. That's all. You see all those layers? They didn't just happen eroded. No, absolutely not. And that's what they tell you, and you have to believe it to get your passing grade. So people just keep repeating the nonsense. Now, what is this? I don't know. But I can tell you one thing, is decomposing biology. Of that I am 100% certain. And there are spots that need to be investigated and looked at carefully as to what they might be. You see that red stuff? Oh, that's just iron oxide. Well, iron is in the blood. Iron is from blood. Now, sometimes if you look real close, you can see things that nobody ever paid any attention to. Because I haven't looked at this. You can't look at everything forever. But that could use some explaining. You know, there's just so much to consider now. Once you understand mud fossils, they're real. They're not a joke. And this is some kind of a creature's body. You're up here above sea level. You know what it is down here? Minus 6,137 meters. That's 18,000 feet. That's a thick rise abruptly. Zip. And this is whatever. There's some kind of biology going on here. What that creature was, I don't know. But I now think Scorbzilla was literally attacking it, because he didn't get him with his pincher, but he got him right at the tip. Look at this carefully. That shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be there. This tip jabbed right into there. You see it? Right into there. From that tip right there. Right in. Now, what is this? This is his pincher. Now, normally he would want to get by this inside of his pincher, which would have been folded back into this crevice. You see all those wrinkles? I hope you can see all that other stuff I was showing. These are the wrinkles. This is the pin. This is the pincher stinger, injector, squirter. All right, now, normally that would be retracted up in here, and this would be laid back. This is muscle. All right, now it's all floppy, but it would just lay back like this, and the stinger would be in here somewhere, and it would zoop, jump in. Well, it didn't get him, but it squirted out here. All right, but I think it got him. He was trying to get him and squirt into him, but somehow this guy got away. Although, I don't know, look at this. Is that something that caused damage? I don't know. Be interesting to think about that. I didn't give it any thought whatsoever, but I'm sure now, I'm almost certain, this is a giant creature. Where it went to and how big it is, but the whole thing runs out here to some very strange looking stuff. Very strange. Could that be the head of a cobra or something? What the hell's going on there? That's like a circle there. You know, you got to twist them upside down this way and that way. What's all going down with this? All this whole thing coming all the way down to Scorbzilla's tail. And here's Scorbzilla, runs the whole length down to California. There's his head right there. His eyeball is right there. This is Crowley Lake. That's his beard. It's a beard this big around each, and there's thousands and thousands of them. And he runs up the whole west coast. And that is exactly identical to where he was showing all of those earthquakes fluttering that whole entire length all the way up to Kamchatka. Something is afoot in that area. Okay, I just want you to know that I go right down to the bottom, to the top, the universe, to the dipole electrons. This is light, actual photons of light. And they're certainly, before they turn into full photons, they're in a neutrino phase. These are neutrinos, same as these, only these are concussing against the reverse electromotive force, making them fluff up into actual photons. They feel like they just hit a wall, because when they hit the Venturi, and you want to see what the Venturi is right here. That's that particle going forward. As it's accelerating, and it is accelerating, that's quite obvious. And then the particle, which creates the wave-particle duality, the wave just, and it takes off and right through the Venturi, and it explodes. It explodes like an atomic bomb, and it is a sub-atomic nuclear explosion. Some physicist, Stefan Burns, maybe can explain to me why it's not, but I say it is. And that's because light is coming here, accelerating and exploding. The black stays back, the white goes forward, and here it is in its extreme closeness. We know we have a muon and electron neutrino, the black and the white, and here's what it looked like coming through the air. Muon, electron neutrino. It's semi-stable, well, it's stable basically. Light is pretty stable. You know, it warms things up, it hits things, it bounces, it's atomic vapor. It's almost identical to water vapor. When this stuff congeals together, when it hits 1,840 particles all globbed together, it's a proton. But when it's in little dusty particles like this, it's light. It has to be sort of moving, and when it bounces off of something, that's when you see it as light. Whatever the frequency coming back is what you see. And the reason is, let's just take this. That's one piece of paper. Oh, what's all the different colors doing? How come there's different colors? I got the same light hitting that, bouncing back at me. Why do I see these different colors? Explain that to me. Well, I can. Each one of these has a different hardness. They have a different hardness. The same light is coming at it, and say bounce back at a different frequency depending upon how hard it is. Basically, the bigger, and it depends on what the molecular structure of it, how hard it is. Basically, that's it. This is, you got to understand chemistry and you know, the physics of the quantum. And this is it. It's dipole electron flood theory. It works for everything. There's not a single thing, zero, that you can present me with that I can't explain with dipole electron flood theory. I put out that challenge to anybody. These are the same identical particles as they found at CERN and Fermilab. This is from Fermilab. That's the particle that has all the mass, and this one has no mass. It's exactly what they say, and all the energy. This goes back 10 years ago. I said energy light is energy while traveling from the sun to Earth. It's dark matter. It's dark matter and energy. So this explains it all. Now, in addition to that, I say that everything is biological. So he's a geophysicist, and geology, I say, is primarily biology. Now, that's what I like to speak to him about as well, because he's plotting earthquakes that are happening exactly where I would predict them, based on the biology that's underneath the Earth.